This is Fitness Blender's Yoga for total body toning. In this workout, we're going to be going through various total body yoga poses and yoga motions of varying repetitions. We're going to be going through this whole cycle twice through, and you're not going to need any equipment for this routine except for an optional yoga mat. Let's go ahead and get started with round number 1. Starting from a nice tall standing position, you're going to slowly bend forward, place those hands on the floor, then walk those feet out back behind you into a high plank or a push-up position. Then nice and slow, drop down, doing a negative push-up, dropping down as slowly as you can, hovering just above the ground, then let it relax. Come back up to a full extension, a full plank, then slowly drop it again. We're going to go through a few repetitions of this. Just keep that back nice and flat. You want a nice straight line from that shoulder down to that ankle. If you can do a full push-up, try to do a full push-up position. Otherwise, you can drop onto those knees. Now, the main focus of this exercise is to move as slowly as you can, dropping down from that plank, down to a full push-up position, and just hovering off the ground. So take your time, really try to slow yourself down, and wait till the last second before you let those muscles completely relax and come back up to that full plank position. Now, this is your last repetition, so really take your time dropping down. And let it relax. Bring those hips up nice and high in the air. Come up to a downward facing dog. Try to get those heels flat against the ground. Nice straight leg. Nice straight line from your hip all the way down to that wrist. So press that chest down towards those feet. And let it relax. Walk those feet back up. Stand up nice and tall. And we're moving on to a chair pose next. Nice and slow. Squat down. Get those arms in a nice straight line with that body. So that nice straight line from that wrist all the way to that hip. Nice flat back. Rotate off to the left. Those hands come together in front of that chest. Rotate those shoulders as much as you possibly can. Still keeping a nice low squat. Come back up to the center. Hold it. Keep those lungs open. Rotate off to the right. Again, those hands right in front of that chest. Rotating those shoulders as much as you can. Keeping those hips nice and low. Back up to the center. Again, off to the left. Nice slow rotation. Hands right in front of that chest. Rotate those shoulders. Again, hips nice and low. Up in front of your body one more time. Extend those arms up. Try to keep them as straight as you can, right by those ears. And again, off to the right. Rotating those shoulders. Hold it there. Keep those lungs open. And straighten those shoulders out. Bring those arms straight up above those shoulders. Nice straight line from wrist to hip. Go ahead and stand it back up. Deep breath in, then bend over forward, reaching those hands down to the ground, walk those feet back down to a downward facing dog, get those hips up nice and high, shove those heels to the ground, nice straight line from wrist to hip. One leg's gonna come back up behind you, good stretch, tuck it underneath to the same elbow, stretch it up again, tuck it back underneath to the opposite elbow, across underneath your body, stretch it up one more time, then to the center in between those arms, and let it relax. Go and switch legs. Same thing on the opposite side. So bring that leg up, really stretch it up, open those hips. Tuck that knee under to the same elbow's knee. Stretch it up again. Then across the opposite elbow. One more time, stretch it up. Keep those lungs open. Tuck that knee down in between those arms and place it back on the ground. Come back up to that downward facing dog. Shove that chest down. Bring that right leg up again. Nice stretch. Tuck it down, same knee as elbow. Stretch it up again. This time bring it down across that opposite elbow. Back up one more time. Now down to the center in between those arms. And switch feet back over the other side. Bring that leg up, stretch it open. Down to that same knee as elbow. Stretch it up again, open that hip up out to the side. Down to that opposite elbow. One more time, stretch it up. Down in between those arms. And set it back. Stretch back into that downward facing dog. Lunge one foot underneath you. Go ahead and stand back up nice and straight and tall. We're going to move into a pulsing warrior next. Step out with that right foot. That left leg stays straight. Down at the bottom of that range of motion, just pulse very lightly. We're going to go 5 times and switch sides. Off with that left foot. Keep that right leg straight. Pulsing 5 times. Keep those lungs open. Nice even breathing. Back again to the right side. Arms nice and level to the ground. And again, moving back to the left. We're moving back and forth a few more repetitions. Just take your time. Nice slow pulses. Now we've got 3 more repetitions on each side. Just take your time. Nice slow controlled motion. Really focus on keeping that back nice and straight. Those arms parallel to the ground, and get a nice even pace on that pulse. Try to move as fluidly as you possibly can and keep those lungs open, breathing as normally as possible. And we have just one more on each side. Leaning off to the right. Keep that left leg nice and straight, arms parallel to the ground. And switch it back to the left. This is our last one. Those lungs open. And let it relax. All right, go ahead and stand back up nice and straight and tall. Nice deep breath in, get a nice straight line to that back, then bend straight over from those hips, hands on the ground. Kick those feet back behind you, go to downward facing dog, hold it for just a second. Then we're going to drop it down to a tricep push-up, a tricep negative. So bring those elbows in really nice and close to that rib cage. Drop down to the ground, let it relax. Flatten the top of that foot to that floor, and then press through those palms, going up into a cobra pose. Hold it for just a few seconds. Then bring those hips back up to downward facing dog, heels against the ground, chest down towards those feet. Then drop it back down to a high plank. Those elbows tucked in nice and close for that negative tricep push-up. Taking your time to slowly drop down, then flatten those feet out on the floor. Arch up for that cobra pose, hold for just a few seconds. And then back up to that downward facing dog. Press those heels into the ground, chest down towards those toes, nice straight line from hip to ankle and hip to wrist. Drop those hips down into that high plank. Slowly bend those elbows, dropping that chest down to the ground, squeezing those elbows to your rib cage. Then come up into that cobra pose. Hold it for 5 seconds. And let it relax, kicking those hips up nice and high. Back to that downward facing dog. We have 2 more cycles of this to go. Back to that high plank. Slowly bending those elbows, keeping those elbows to that rib cage. Keep those lungs open the entire time. You're going to want to hold your breath, especially on that negative, but you want to make sure you keep those lungs open. Breathing normally. And back up to that downward facing dog. This is our last one right here. Nice and slow down. Tucking those elbows to that rib cage. And let it relax. Flatten those feet down. Push up into that cobra. Hold it. Back up into that downward facing dog. Freeze again for just a second. And walk those feet in underneath you. Stand up nice and straight and tall. Take a nice deep breath in. And let it relax. That's the end of round number 1. We're going to start round number 2 here in just a second. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with round number 2. We're doing the same progression over again. So this should be a lot easier to follow along with, as well as much more relaxing. So going to bend forward from those hips, hands on the ground, walk those feet back to a high plank position. Doing a full push-up, nice and slow, dropping it down. Again, if you need to, you can always drop onto those knees to make it a little bit easier, but try to do a full push-up the entire time if you can. Just nice, slow negatives, keeping those lungs open, nice straight line through that back, straight line from that shoulder all the way down to that ankle if you're doing the full version, or a straight line from that shoulder down to that knee if you're doing the half version. Just keep it going. Lungs open the entire time. You're going to want to hold your breath on here, but try to keep it open. Just got a few more to go. And let that one relax. You have one more. Reset yourself in that full push-up position. And there's your last one. Nice and slow down. Try to keep everything as solid as you can. Those lungs open. And let it relax. Come back up. Press up into that downward facing dog. Heels flat against the ground or as close to as you can. Nice straight leg. Pressing that chest down towards those feet so you have a nice straight line from hip to wrist. And walk those feet back up underneath you. Stand up nice and straight and tall. Nice deep breath in. We're going to chair pose next. So nice and slow, sit down, squatting down. It's okay if those knees press over those toes. You're just trying to hold this position nice and solid, nice straight back. Rotate to the left. Those hands come in front of your chest. Rotating those shoulders as much as you can, keeping that nice low squat. Come back to the center, still maintaining that nice low squat, keeping a straight line from that arm all the way down into that torso. Rotate off to the right. Again, rotating those shoulders as much as you can, keeping those lungs open, breathing normally, still maintaining that squat. Back to the center. Off to the left again. Rotate those shoulders, hands in front of your chest. Hold it here for just a few seconds. Back to the center, arms come straight up. One more time off to the right. Rotate those shoulders off. Really focus on keeping those hips nice and low. Concentrate on that form. Back up to the center one more time. And slowly stand up. Nice deep breath in. Exhale, tipping forward, bending from those hips. Walk those feet back behind you. We're going to move into a downward facing dog. Heels on the ground, chest down towards those feet. Bring that right leg up behind you. Nice big stretch. Open that hip up. Tuck that knee to that same elbow's knee, so that right elbow. Stretch it up again. Then down to that left elbow. Right knee to left elbow. Then stretch up again. Nice deep breath in. Open those hips. Then to the center in between those arms. Then switch those feet. That left leg's into the same. Stretch up. Open that hip. Tuck it down. Same knee to elbow. Then stretch it up again. Nice deep breath in. Open that hip up. Tuck that knee underneath again to the opposite elbow this time. Stretch up one more time. Deep breath. And exhale. Tuck that knee in between those arms. And place it back on the ground. Switching back to that right leg. Open that hip up. Stretch that leg up nice and high. Tuck that knee down. Same elbow as knee. Stretch it up nice and high. Deep breath. Exhale down to that opposite knee. Again, stretch it up. Nice deep breath. Then down in between those arms. Then place that foot back on the ground. Reset that downward facing dog and start back over with that left leg. Stretch it up. Same knee as elbow. Stretch up again. Nice deep breath. Open that hip to that opposite elbow this time. Again, stretch it up. Nice deep breath. Open that hip. Bring that knee down in between those arms for the last one. And let it relax by walking those feet back up underneath you. Standing back up nice and straight and tall. Nice deep breath in. We're going to step off to the right side for that pulsing warrior pose. 5 pulses on each side. Then come back up to the center. Off to the left. Another 5 pulses on that side. Keep those arms parallel to the ground, lunging as far as comfortable. The longer you take of a step, the harder it's going to be to hold that position, the harder it's going to be to do that pulse. So take as long of a step as is comfortable for you. Keep those lungs open. Breathing as normally as you possibly can. Just alternating back and forth. We have a few more repetitions of this to go. I'm going to stop talking and let you just concentrate on that form, concentrate on that breathing, make sure everything's nice and fluid. And we have just one more on each side. Stepping off to the right again. That left leg nice and straight. Arms parallel to the ground. Back nice and straight. Back over to the left. This is our last one right here. Back up to the center. Take a nice deep breath in. We're going to slowly bend forward from those hips with a nice straight back. Hands down to the ground. Walk those feet up back behind you. Kick those hips up, going to a downward facing dog. Heels to the ground, chest down towards those feet. Then drop those hips down, coming to a high plank or a full push-up position. Tuck those elbows to your sides. You slowly start bending those elbows, dropping that chest to the ground. Then flatten those feet out to the ground. Arch that chest up for that cobra pose. Hold it for just a few seconds. Then let it relax. Kick those hips back up, going back to that downward facing dog. Heels to the ground, chest to those feet. Drop those hips, slowly bend those elbows. Arch that chest up for that cobra pose, hold it. And again, kick those hips up for that downward facing dog. Now I've got 3 more repetitions of this cycle to go. Dropping back down to that push-up position. Slowly dropping down, keep that back nice and flat. If you can, do a full push-up position. Again, like I said before, you can always drop down onto those knees. Coming up for that cobra pose, hold it. Slowly back up into that downward facing dog, short pause. Right back down into that push-up position, that high plank. Slowly bending those elbows, tucking them to your rib cage, keep them nice and close to that rib cage. Arch that back up again for that cobra pose, top of your foot flat against the ground. And back up to that downward facing dog. This is our last repetition right here. Slowly drop back down. Bend those elbows. Tuck them to that rib cage nice and close. Flatten that top of that foot down to the ground, arch that back up nice and high. A nice stretch to those abdominal muscles and those hip flexors. Back down, slowly press it back up in that downward facing dog, hold it for just a second, walk those feet up underneath you. Stand up nice and straight and tall, nice deep breath in, and let it relax. This workout is complete. You just finished Fitness Blender's Yoga for Total Body Toning.